Hi guys, welcome back to Lexalexus. We're carrying on with our score predictions. We've made it to week 42. We're going to react to whatever happened in midweek, which happened yesterday. Some mad movement regarding the playoffs, promotion and the relegation battle. That saga is going to continue into today's predictions with some really big games coming up now. And this is the last game week before we start predicting Good Friday's games. And then Easter Monday's games happening very, very quickly in short turnaround of time. With those two game weeks being concluded, a lot can be revealed within the championship. We really are days away from finding out what is going to happen. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. 50 likes will be amazing. Please do hit the subscribe button too. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please share the channel too. All three of these things are free to do and they really help. As always guys, please leave your score predictions in the comments down below because I love to hear your thoughts on the next coming games in the championship. And if you leave your score prediction, you could get a chance to score some points on the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. Without any further ado, let's start predicting week 42. We'll start off our predictions with Burnley going up against Norwich. Both fired blanks in their midweek game. Burnley were involved in a 0-0 draw against Derby, where looking at the chances that both of these sides had, I would arguably say that it was Derby that actually looked a little bit more likely that they were going to get the goal. But certainly it was one of those games where Burnley fell short going forward by the looks of things. It's another draw from them, and what it meant, they have lost their first place position now. They've slipped down into second, but they'd be a little bit relieved that Sheffield United also dropped points and they didn't gain any points in their midweek game. More on that later on in this video. Norwich, they were involved in a draw within their game. I mean, maybe a little bit disappointing they didn't get a result against Sunderland, but it ended up as a 0-0 draw. It's one of those games now where if Norwich had any sort of chance of getting to the top 6, I think it's now completely evaporated away. It's going to be very difficult to see this Norwich side in the top 6 now. Sadly, I don't think they'll be getting into the playoffs, so I think now they'll be kind of playing for pride, but it'll be a little bit more pressurizing for Burnley because they still have got something huge to play for. They've got to try and wrap up promotion, and they are currently second place at the moment, and I think definitely leading up to the game against Sheffield United, I think Burnley are going to want to have the upper hand when they do play Sheffield United. They know they're at home and they could have an advantage for being pretty strong at home all season, but they certainly would want to be beating Sheffield United by the time they play them. As a prediction, I think Burnley will go back to winning ways here. I think they are starting to get some more consistency at home. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Burnley, but Norwich maybe could throw a couple of surprises because they are decent going forward, Norwich, but defensively is where they let themselves down, and I think that is going to be a big influence on the scoreline. Next up, we've got Leeds going up against Preston. Both teams were involved in a pretty important game in their own right in midweek. So going on Leeds for a start, Leeds needed a win. They were really struggling for form and looking like that they were going to slip away from the chances of getting automatic promotion. But they did beat in-form Middlesbrough by 1-0 away from home. A very crucial win and a good confidence boost for Leeds, but they can still pick up points on the road. And they're going into this game top of the league, so it's certainly a really good place for them to be. They're 2 points clear of Sheffield United in third currently. Preston were involved, a game that didn't really influence them, but a game that influenced their opposition, Cardiff. They were involved in a draw against them in the end, and it was certainly a mad game to navigate around. It did end as a draw, and personally, it was one of those games where I really did not see for it to be as exciting as it was. It ended up as a 2-2 draw. A really good fight back from Cardiff to take it from the depths, but I think Preston are at this stage where they really don't have anything to play for, so I'm not going to be too overly critical from them. They'll probably just be a little bit disappointed they couldn't pick up another home win, because at home they've been really good. Away from home, Preston have not been as good, and despite Preston actually beating Leeds to the reverse fixture early on this season, I think Leeds will get their revenge. Their form at Ellen Road has been strong. Preston's away form hasn't been great, so arguably the most likely outcome is going to be a Leeds win, and it'll be so typical for Championship if Preston do somehow get a result. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Leeds, but maybe rather reluctantly. I'm still yet to see if we're going to not give in to the pressure. You know, Swansea at home was a winnable game and they bottled that. So could this be another one of those games? Maybe, but I am going to give Leeds the slight benefit of the doubt with the quality of their squad. But let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we see Plymouth going up against Sheffield United. Both were involved in very punishing defeats in midweek, and both opposite ends of the table. Plymouth were involved in a defeat against Swansea, a 3-0 defeat, and it was a very punishing defeat because we had quite a few teams in that bottom part of the table dropping some points pretty needlessly. So Plymouth missed a big opportunity to potentially close the gap between them and safety, but the gap between them and safety now is 6 points, and with only 15 points up to grabs, they could find themselves after the Easter holidays looking like that they are mathematically not going to stay up, unfortunately. So time is starting to run out for Plymouth. It's a really big week for them, but they are facing the Sheffield United side, who are a bit bizarre at the moment, because it did look like that Sheffield United were going to pull away a little bit, and then all of a sudden they've now had back-to-back defeats against teams that they probably weren't expecting to lose to. Oxford and Millwall respectively, both by 1-0 scorelines, and it has left them in a very, very precarious position in the table. I mean, their goal difference could potentially be a factor which might hinder them a little bit. I know Burnley and Leeds is significantly stronger than Sheffield United, so they're really going to make it up on the points point of view. But Plymouth, as we know, in their home games have been relatively good all season, so it's going to be a tough one to call for this one. As a prediction, I think my head is telling me it will be a Sheffield United away win, but I'm not too convinced. And I'm actually going to go maybe for a shocking 1-1 draw. I actually think Plymouth can get something here. They really can't afford a draw right now. I think Plymouth need to win this game to give themselves any fighting chance of survival. Hence why I think Sheffield United will find this game very difficult. But it's really going to be down to see how Plymouth manage it. Because if Plymouth manage it poorly, then Sheffield United could sense that and they could go back to winning ways. And that will give Sheffield United a perfect confidence boost leading into their game against Burnley. I'm going to go for a draw, however. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Cardiff going up against Stoke City. I feel like it was Cardiff who stated that their last home game against QPR was the most important game of their season, and they only drew that 0-0. If that was deemed their most important game, but based on previous results, I think they've got to look at this as their most important game of the season. Cardiff are in a position where they're still in the bottom three, and what is really preventing them from getting out of it currently is their goal difference. It's significantly worse than the other teams around them in that position. So, likewise with Sheffield United, but for a different place in the table entirely, they've got to try and make up the points just so that their goal difference doesn't drag them down. They're facing the Stoke City side, who are only above them by 2 points. So Cardiff have a terrific opportunity to get 3 points, but to also overtake another side within them in the relegation pack. A lot of the sides in that region of the table actually failed to pick up a win, so it has just left it even more tight and competitive in that region of the table, and these games really are, I think, are going to be a defining factor to see who stays up and who goes down to League One. As a prediction, I can't edge it. I think I'm going to go for a draw, a 1-1 draw. Cardiff have drawn their last 3 in a row. Stoke are doing decently well with their form, so I think naturally both will cancel each other out here. Next up is Luton going up against Blackburn Rovers. Both were involved in a draw in their last game. Luton were involved in another relegation 6-pointer, it feels, against Stoke City. And it was a big opportunity missed for Stoke. Stoke took the lead and they could have controlled it and could have shut up shop, but they didn't. Luton fought right to the end, and he did manage to get a draw in the end, actually. And because of that, Luton have now hit the 40-point mark and are only 2 points off safety, probably 3 points, taking their goal difference into account here. Blackburn's season has certainly disintegrated. They are now looking like they're going to finish in a bottom half position, which is crazy considering where this Blackburn team were before John Eustace decided to part ways with them. But they did get some fight back. They did manage to salvage a draw in their last game. It did feel like against Sheffield Wednesday where it was going to be a pretty bad result again. But fair play to Blackburn. They did fight back. So a really good result. At all things considered, definitely a good improvement. But I do think they're facing the Luton side who are fighting for their lives. It's going to be very, very difficult. Luton are going through an unbeaten run at the moment. And they know Luton, they need to win this game to give themselves any chance of getting out of the bottom three. And I do think they could do it. I'm going to go for a 2-0 home victory to Luton Town. I think this is going to really make things quite interesting now. And I definitely sense that Luton are going to be really determined for this, and Blackburn I just think have checked out unfortunately with their form, so I'll go for a Luton win and now certainly spice things up in the relegation battle. Next we've got Millwall versus Middlesbrough. This is a huge game in the playoffs. I kind of looked at this thinking, oh, you know, Millwall looking for players but Middlesbrough looking quite secure. Middlesbrough are not secure for playoffs. They did lose their last game against Leeds, probably a little bit disappointing they didn't get at least a point. They did look like that they were probing Leeds, trying to get something out of that game, but they just weren't clinical enough. Whereas with Millwall, they barely threatened at going forward and barely had any shots compared to the amount that Sheffield United had, but they were very clinical. Got the goal from Coburn, and they can match Middlesbrough's points tally if they can beat them here. You know, Millwall being quite a silent assassin for the playoffs at the moment. They're kind of going a bit under the radar. They're quietly going about their way. They're getting a little bit more consistency with their results. And I think Millwall can get a good result here. Now, a draw wouldn't surprise me. I'm going to put this out there. I think a draw can happen, but I think Millwall are looking really confident at the moment. And I just think they have got something going for them. And I'm going to go for a Millwall 1-0 win. Just think with the whole pressure of the playoffs, I think it could take its toll on Middlesbrough here. And I think Millwall have certainly got the momentum a little bit more on their side. And I think they could snatch a result here. Who knows? Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we've got Portsmouth and Derby County. This is another big game in the relegation battle. So, for context, Derby are on 42 points. Portsmouth are on 45. So both of these sides, let's talk about their results. So Portsmouth were involved in a very late defeat against Coventry. It was literally the last minute of the game. I mean, what a goal it was by Jamie Patterson. I watched it and it was absolutely amazing. Just almost out of nothing, because I don't actually think Coventry did too much to warrant for that goal in the end. They only really came alive in the final 10 minutes. And Portsmouth did brilliantly to keep the scoreline at 0-0 until that moment there. Derby, they were involved in that draw, of course, against Burnley. And I actually think Derby nailed the game perfectly, apart from scoring the goal. So, ultimately, I do think this is a very important game for both. Derby can match Portsmouth's points if they can beat them here. But if Portsmouth do win this game, they're 6 points clear of Derby and could potentially be 6 points clear of relegation with only, if I can do the maths right, 12 points up to grabs. So this is such an important game. I think a win for Portsmouth, they will be within touching distance of staying up. Prediction, I think they're going to do it. I think Portsmouth can win this one. Their home form has been great. Derby's away form has improved, but not enough for me to convince them that they could beat Portsmouth here. I mean, oh God, this is tough. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Portsmouth, but I really do think Derby could do something at the moment. They have got something within them. They have seemed to have this never say die attitude, and I think that could get them something, but I'm just a little bit more confident with Portsmouth home form. Let me know what you think too. Next up, we've got QPR and Bristol City. Both managed to get a win. And yes, QPR did win a game of football for the first time in quite a while. It was a crucial win as well, because it was against a relegation rival in Oxford United. Nearly said Oxford City. But that was a big win for QPR, because now they're finding themselves in the high 40s. I think they're on 49 points if I remembered looking at the table. It's leaving Oxford on 45 points, so a little bit exposed for them, so not a good result at all for Oxford United fans, but for QPR fans, this was huge. They now have some breathing space between them and the bottom three. I think they have 7 points actually clear, which is very crucial time to have a 7-point gap with only 15 points left to play. And you've got to say, I think another win or even 1 or 2 more draws for QPR should secure it. So I am seeing 50 points as a good target for the sides to get. But even if the sides, average a point a game, I truly believe maybe even 48 could be enough to survive. But I can't prophesize to that. But as this game goes, Bristol City are doing exactly what they need to do. They're just getting wins. Even when they're not quite dominating games, they're still getting results. And I've got to say, against West Brom, I thought they started quite well, Bristol City, but then West Brom really took over in the second half, got that equaliser, were really, really pushing for the win. And then, obviously, they go down to 10 men, and Bristol City took full advantage, and fair play to them. They are now in a commanding position for playoffs now in the moment. They're going to have to collapse in their next 5 games if Bristol City are going to miss out. They've actually got a 3-point cushion from getting into the playoffs. So amazing stuff from Bristol City here. Can this form continue? You've got to say, I think if Bristol City win this, I think it's looking like it's going to definitely be playoffs. They'll be on 66 points. And I think that's going to be very difficult for many of the sides to catch up onto that. I think they can. I'm going to say a 2-1 away victory to Bristol City. And I think that win will secure playoffs for Bristol City. From QPR's point of view, it might not be the end of the world. It just really depends on what the other sides do around them. Next, we've got Sheffield Wednesday going up against Oxford, both with somewhat disappointing results. So Sheffield Wednesday, I know they didn't lose in their game, but they did take a good lead against Blackburn and did let that lead slip away. And off the field, things are not looking too smooth for Sheffield Wednesday at this moment, and I think it is affecting their performances on the pitch. They have not won in their last 5 games. The last game they won was actually that 3-goal comeback against Norwich City. Oxford, their form had looked pretty good, then it hit a bit of a rocky patch, losing to Queen's Park Rangers in midweek. A win here for Oxford, I think, will start giving them a little bit of a chance to get out of the predicament they find themselves. Sheffield Wednesday, however, have got one of the worst home forms in the league. So I actually think Oxford could get something, but Oxford, unfortunately, have got one of the worst away records in the league. So I'm a little bit torn on which side I'm going to be backing here. And I think when I'm torn, I typically go for a draw. Now, a draw for both of these sides won't really do anything for Sheffield Wednesday, It just will mean that they definitely will not get playoffs. Oxford, I think that point will be a lot more bigger for them than it will be for Sheffield Wednesday. Hence why I think Oxford might try and go for the point just to see if they can get a little bit more breathing space from the bottom 3. As a prediction, I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. Can't really separate the two, but honestly, I think if any side were to win, I think it'll be by 1 goal. Next, we've got Sunderland going up against Swansea. So this game is, to me, a little bit meaningless. In all honesty, Sunderland have already secured a playoff place at least. Maybe just a very, very miniature chance that Sunderland could still get automatically promoted. But personally, I do think the gap is going to be a little bit too big. And especially it wasn't helped with the fact they did drop points against Norwich in midweek 2. Swansea going through a little bit of a late charge with the amount of points and the form that they're picking up. But definitely don't think playoffs will be the case for Swansea. They're going to need a lot of luck to go their way if they're going to try and get playoffs at this stage of the season. But I do sense with this Swansea side that they are going to try and get a positive form at the end of the season. They're certainly trying to end the season on a high. This is a pretty tough one for me. I think Sunderland will want to try and make sure that they have decent momentum going into the playoffs too, though. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Sunderland. I think they'll just continue chugging away and getting the points that they're expecting to get. And I think they will start thinking about their preparation for the playoffs. Next is West Brom versus Watford. And I've got to say for West Brom fans, it's not a very enjoyable time to be supporting your club in the moment. It's 3 consecutive defeats. It's 5 games without a win for West Brom. They're still on 57 points, but following the fact that you've had Bristol City and Coventry win their midweek games, the gap to getting back into the playoffs is getting larger and larger by each game week. They need to pick up a win right now if West Brom do want to have a chance of getting into the playoffs. Unfortunately, I just don't think they are going to do it. And I can't believe that in my playoff prediction video, I did have West Brom looking like they can get into the playoffs pretty comfortably. But whilst Bristol City and Coventry have improved, West Brom have gone worse. And it was a very unfortunate way that they lost in the end to Bristol City. I think certainly the performance was telling you that West Brom were pushing for the win. The red card happened, of course, and then ultimately they lost it. So it's definitely very punishing. It typifies exactly what the championship is. Watford were involved in a pretty big win against Hull. Big for the implications of the relegation picture, honestly, more than Watford's chances into the playoffs. I do think Watford are going to find it very difficult, though not much separates between West Brom and Watford at the moment. I think this one could be a very, very tight game. Prediction-wise, I think I'm going to go for another draw. 1-1 draw in this game. West Brom just not winning games at the moment, and I do think Watford will be good enough to get something from this game. Sissoko actually having some really good form for Watford at the moment. I think he'll be a prominent part here. Let me know what you think in the comments. And our final game to predict is Hull and Coventry. Huge game. Hull need the points. They are not safe as of yet. They're not in the bottom 3 currently, but right now, 1 or 2 bad results can easily see them go back there. It was a pretty disappointing defeat for them against Watford. I know Watford are a decent side, but have been also a pretty inconsistent side, and Hull have looked a little bit consistent away from home. So it was one performance that they didn't quite get a result. And actually, stats-wise, it did look like the Hull were pushing. They just weren't clinical. Coventry, they got the job done against Portsmouth. They did not make it easy for them, but they managed to do it. They fought right to the final minute of the game, and that mentality is making sure that Coventry are keeping within touching distance of the playoffs, and it could be a crucial part of their game, which could literally take them all the way. So I'm certainly going to keep my eye out to see how Coventry are going to do in the last 5 games. Certainly their playoff place is not secured yet, like Sunderland. I do think they're going to need to do a lot more and going to need to prove in these final couple of games that they can get there. Prediction, I think Coventry will make a statement here. I'm going to go for a 3-1 away victory to Coventry. I think Hull's hopeful has generally improved, but they have been picking up wins against teams around them and haven't really had a great record against teams above them. So I do think it will be Coventry's game to win. Let me know what you think in the comments. So there you have it, guys. That wraps up my predictions for week 32. As always, guys, if you leave your predictions in the comments down below, you guys can have a chance to score some points in the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. But also like to see your comments as well regarding the force of the championships, how you think each team is going. Let me know your reaction to Birmingham returning to the championship. I would love to know. And who else do you think from League One is going to join Birmingham? Okay, so that wraps us up. If you guys enjoyed, please smash the like button. Please do hit the subscribe button too. It really does help with trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. And please also share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do, and they really, really help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary. If it's Sonny in this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.